welcome to this deep dive. You
Oh.
folks have sent over a ton of readings
Yeah.
about social reality,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pretty heady stuff, to be honest.
Definitely.
We're talking excerpts from papers with names like
Oh, yeah.
1769 Texto del Artículo 5932, 110, 213, 1216, 1.pdf.
Right.
And here comes everything, the promise of Gretel 1.pdf,
Yeah.
and a few more like that.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, we're diving deep into social ontology today,
Uh-huh.
which I guess you could say asks, like,
Yeah.
what makes society tick? How do we even create things like governments and money?
Right.
And then why do they have
Yeah.
such a powerful hold on us?
Yeah. And what's so interesting about this field of social ontology is that it's not just theoretical.
Okay.
You know, like
Right.
understanding how social reality actually works
Mhm.
can really help us see those sometimes invisible forces
Yeah.
that are shaping our lives.
I like that.
And maybe even, imagine completely new ways of living together.
Yeah. Those invisible forces, that's a great phrase.
Yeah.
It makes me think of, like,
Uh-huh.
you see those nature documentaries where they show all the relationships
Right.
in an ecosystem? Maybe a society has its own kind of hidden network like that.
Totally.
But before we get too far,
Yeah.
we should probably define what
Mhm.
we're talking about.
Yeah.
What is social ontology?
So social ontology is basically the study of the being of social things.
Okay.
And it's like a deeper level of inquiry
Uh-huh.
than just asking like
Right.
how things function.
Okay.
So instead of just saying like how does an economy work,
Right.
it's more like what is an economy in the first place?
Oh, I see.
Right. So it's looking at things like countries, sports teams,
Yeah.
universities,
Okay.
money, laws.
So, like, a mountain range
Mhm.
would exist whether we're here or not.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
things like money or countries,
Mm-hmm.
those rely on us
Yes.
believing in them to even exist.
That is a key distinction. Okay.
We call that observer-independent versus observer-relative facts.
Okay.
Mountains are observer-independent.
Mm-hmm.
Money is observer-relative.
Right.
And that leads to a pretty fascinating question.
Right.
How can we, as biological creatures,
Yeah.
create an entire reality
Right.
that only exists because we think it exists?
Oh, okay. That is mind-bending. But
Yeah.
hold on.
Uh,
Even though these social facts we're talking about
Yeah.
rely on our beliefs,
okay.
can't knowledge about them still be objective?
Absolutely.
Like, it's not like just whatever you believe about money is true.
You're right. It may seem a little counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but think about it like this.
Mm-hmm.
We can study the history of money,
Uh-huh.
the different forms it's taken,
Okay.
the impact it's had on societies
Mm.
in a very objective, rigorous way.
Okay.
Even though the concept of money itself
Mm.
is based on this collective acceptance.
This makes me think about something I read.
In 1769, Texto del Artículo 5932, 110, 201327
Oh.
1.pdf.
Okay, yeah.
This author was saying that a lot of the classic thinkers about society
Yeah.
kind of took language for granted.
Oh, interesting.
Like it was just this given tool, you know?
Right, right.
And they focus more on how we use it
yeah.
to build institutions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this author is arguing that language
Yeah.
is actually fundamental
Yeah.
to this whole process
It's more than just a tool. It's like the foundation.
of creating social reality.
Exactly.
It's like if my dog is watching a football game,
Okay, yeah.
he can see the players, the ball, all that,
Right.
but he can't grasp the concept of like a touchdown.
He doesn't have the framework.
He doesn't have that symbolic understanding.
Exactly. Language allows us to grasp things
Uh-huh.
that aren't physically present.
Right.
It's our ability to think and communicate
Yeah.
in symbols
Okay.
that lets us create and share this whole world of social reality.
So language is like the tool. But what are the building blocks?
Well, the author boils it down to 3 primitives.
Primitives.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they might sound a little intimidating at first,
All right, hit me.
but they're actually pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Collective intentionality, assignment of function,
Okay.
and constitutive rules.
Primitives, huh? So those are like the foundation of everything.
Yeah, you could say that.
All right, let's break them down.
Okay.
What's collective intentionality?
Think of it as our ability to share beliefs, desires, intentions.
Okay.
It's really the basis of all cooperation,
Mm-hmm.
from a wolf pack hunting together
Right.
to a group of friends deciding what movie to watch.
Yeah.
It all comes down to that shared intentionality.
And that links back to language, right?
Totally.
We need language to communicate those intentions.
Especially as things get more complex.
Yeah.
Language is how we build that shared understanding.
Right. So it goes beyond just like
Yeah.
basic communication. It lets us create these really elaborate systems.
Governments, legal systems, all of that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What about
Yeah.
assignment of function?
Okay, so that one...
Isn't that just how things work?
Well, it goes a bit deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's about how we give objects meaning and purpose
Uh-huh.
that go beyond their physical properties.
Like a hammer is for hammering.
Right, but a hammer's function
Yeah.
as a tool
Right.
comes from our collective intention to use it that way.
So we're giving objects a kind of social soul, you could say,
Yeah, I like that.
based on how we agree to use them.
Exactly.
And that can even change over time.
Right, absolutely.
Like an old vinyl record.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it becomes decoration instead of something you listen to.
Exactly, which brings us to the third primitive
Okay.
constitutive rules.
Constitutive rules.
These are the rules that determine
Okay.
how something counts as something else.
All right.
It's the X counts as Y principle.
So a piece of paper
That.
counts as a $20 bill.
Exactly.
Because we all agree on that.
Even though physically, it's just paper and ink.
Right. And this counting as idea
Yeah,
isn't just for physical objects, is it?
you got it.
What about things like status functions?
Like being a president or professor?
Right, those positions have power.
Yeah,
But it's not because of who the person is.
right.
It's because of what those positions represent.
They generate, like, rights and duties and obligations.
Exactly. We call those deontic powers.
Deontic powers.
Yeah.
So saying this person counts as the president
Mm-hmm.
gives them the power to make decisions that affect millions of people, even though fundamentally they're just another person.
That's wild.
It is.
That's the power of these status functions.
Yeah, they create this web of social meaning and
Uh-huh.
the consequence
That goes way beyond the individual person.
or object.
Think about it.
Right.
Why do we stop at a red light
Right.
or respect property lines?
Exactly. It's not always because we want to.
Right.
It's because we recognize a social obligation.
So it's like our desires are always bumping up against
Yeah.
this existing social structure.
Right. We've inherited these structures.
Yeah, and that tension,
Yeah.
that's where things get really interesting, I think.
Absolutely.
It's what makes social ontology so relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Helps us understand the forces that are shaping our lives.
For sure.
But also
Yeah.
maybe the potential to change those forces.
I think that's key.
But it's not just theoretical, is it?
No, not at all.
Like, these concepts have a real impact.
Yeah, think about that example from Hernando de Soto.
Oh, yeah.
About property deeds.
Right. In developing countries.
People might own land, practically speaking,
Uh-huh.
but without that official deed, that status indicator,
Okay.
it can have huge economic consequences.
It's like their ownership doesn't fully count
Exactly.
in the system's eyes.
They can't use the property as collateral.
Wow.
They can't be taxed on it.
It's a perfect example of how these seemingly abstract ideas
Right.
have real-world consequences.
Absolutely. But it gets even more complex
Oh, boy.
when we talk about institutions where the status function
Okay.
exists without a physical object.
All right, now we're getting into it.
Barry Smith calls these freestanding Y terms.
Freestanding Y terms.
It blew my mind when I first encountered that.
Okay, give me an example.
Corporations,
Okay.
legally, they're treated as these entities that
Ah.
can own property, enter into contracts,
Right.
but there's no physical thing.
Yeah.
That is the corporation. It's purely a status function.
So we've created this whole category of beings
Pretty much.
out of thin air
Yeah.
just through language and legal frameworks.
It's incredibly powerful.
It really is.
It shows how these social constructs can take on a life of their own.
Okay, so we've been focusing a lot on humans here,
Mm-hmm.
our view of social reality.
Yeah,
But what about the objects themselves?
that's a great question.
Do they have a role to play in all this?
That's a question that here comes everything the promise of the 1.pdf really gets into.
Okay.
It introduces this idea called object-oriented ontology.
Object-oriented ontology.
Oh, for short.
Ooh. Yeah. All right, break that down for me.
Okay, so Wu argues that everything is an object.
Everything.
Yeah, with hidden depths that we can never fully grasp.
Okay.
From rocks and trees
Yeah.
to ideas and emotions.
Right.
Everything has its own unique way of being.
So instead of focusing on, like,
Mhm.
the human subject and how
Yeah.
we perceive the world,
Right.
it was saying, hey, the objects themselves
Yeah.
have their own thing going on.
They have their own agency.
And if we apply that to social ontology, it's like maybe our focus on human subjectivity
Right.
is blinding us to the agency of the objects themselves.
That's possible.
Like maybe we're so focused on humans assigning meaning to money
Yeah.
that we've missed how money itself
Right.
shapes our behavior, our interaction.
That's a great example.
It opens up a whole new way to think about the
Yeah.
relationship between us and the social structures that we create.
And it goes beyond social constructs.
Okay.
Wu even challenges this concept of nature
Okay.
as being separate from human experience.
Right, that human-nature divide.
Uh-huh.
It's caused a lot of problems.
It makes us think that we're outside or above
Yeah.
the natural world.
And that's had some pretty negative consequences.
For sure.
So Uwe is suggesting a flatter ontology
A world of interconnected objects,
where humans are just one type of object.
among many.
This Uwe stuff is really
The big shift.
shaking things up.
For sure.
But science cannot determine human values. U.PDF takes kind of a more
Second.
grounded approach, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It argues that science can tell us what is, but not what ought to be.
Right. And that's really important for social ontology.
Okay.
We can study social structures scientifically. But questions of value, like what makes a good society
Right.
or a just system, those involve philosophical,
Okay.
mythical considerations.
So it's like science gives us the map
Yeah.
of social reality,
Okay.
but it can't tell us our destination.
Or how to get there.
Makes me think about those debates around AI and algorithms making decisions.
Yeah.
If science can't determine human values,
Right.
how do we program algorithms to do it?
That's a huge question we're facing.
It is.
It really highlights the need to grapple with these philosophical questions
Yeah.
alongside all the technological advancements.
The Caliph Things, a critique of Object1.pdf, gets into some pretty deep philosophical territory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it critiques this idea
Okay.
that objects have this inherent call
Uh-huh.
that we can listen to.
It's a thought-provoking critique.
It is.
It pushes back against attributing agency or consciousness to objects.
Right.
This idea that we can, like, hear the whispers of a mountain or a coffee cup.
Like we're yearning for a connection with
Yeah.
something non-human.
And the author argues that this can actually be
Yeah.
a form of anthropocentrism
Okay.
in disguise.
Instead of truly listening,
Yeah.
we're just hearing our own echo.
Exactly.
And this is especially relevant to our relationship with technology, wouldn't you say?
I think so, yeah.
We create these increasingly complex systems, but are we really engaging with them on their terms?
That's a good question.
Or are we just using them as extensions of ourselves?
That's the challenge we need to be aware of.
Okay, so we've talked about some really abstract ideas here
Yeah.
about objects and social reality.
Like you're...
But the ontology of the Socialist Ethereal.pdf takes a more
Okay.
concrete
Right.
approach.
Yeah.
It's all about how we understand the social as a distinct category of being.
This is where social ontology starts to inform our understanding of those real-world issues.
Okay.
We need to move beyond just describing social interactions.
So the social isn't just the sum of individual actions.
Right. It's this emergent entity with its own properties and dynamics.
And this author makes a distinction between sociality
Okay.
and the
Social state.
Sociality is like our innate tendency to form relationships, but the social is bigger.
Yeah, it includes all the structures and institutions.
That shape our lives.
It's like our sociality might be the seed of society,
I like that.
but it's the social, this
Yeah.
whole complex web that determines how that seed actually grows.
And it's not static. It's constantly evolving.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
And the author proposes these generative categories
Generative category.
to kind of map out this social terrain.
Okay.
These are things that are fundamental to any human society,
Okay.
but they can take on all these different forms.
So the parent-child relationship is
Yeah.
pretty fundamental.
Absolutely.
But how that relationship plays out, the norms and practices.
Right. It can look very different across cultures. And this goes beyond just describing different societies, right?
It does.
This author is interested in how we evaluate them,
Right.
figure out which ones are more
Yeah.
or less conducive to human flourishing.
It's about developing criteria to assess whether a society's structures
Okay.
are helping or hindering its members.
Oh, it's a social ontology that's not just descriptive.
Exactly.
It's normative, too.
It needs to guide us.
towards creating societies that are more just, more equitable.
Absolutely.
Makes me think about social media.
Uh-huh.
Is it really helping people connect?
Yeah.
Or is it making us more isolated and anxious?
It's a prime example of how these ontological questions have very real-world implications.
Our technology, how we structure our societies.
It's all an expression of our values,
Yeah.
our understanding of what it means to be human.
It all comes back to that question of social ontology.
Yeah.
What kind of social reality do we want to create?
And how can we use these principles to shape a more just, equitable,
fulfilling world?
Exactly.
That's a big question.
It is, and one that this next source, 1769, Texadel Tikilo 5932 110 Trinisan 131 616, 1.pdf tackles head on.
Right.
They explore this concept of power
Okay.
and how it relates to domination.
So we're talking like absolute power corrupts absolutely.
It's a bit more nuanced than that.
Okay.
The author distinguishes between power as a general capacity to act and domination as a very specific form of power used to control or exploit others.
So power itself isn't necessarily bad.
Right.
It's how we use it.
Exactly.
And this ties back to those deontic powers we were talking about.
It does. Domination often involves manipulating those rights, duties, obligations.
To benefit a select few?
At the expense of others.
It's like rigging the game.
Yeah, great analogy.
So some players always have the advantage.
The author uses Rousseau's analysis of inequality to illustrate this.
Rousseau argued that the origins of inequality lie in the desire for surplus.
When one person wants more than they need,
they try to control the resources and labor of others.
It leads to the creation of social structures, institutions that perpetuate that unequal distribution of power.
Makes you think about all the debates we're having right now.
Yeah.
About wealth inequality, the concentration of power.
In the hands of a few corporations, individuals.
Is this just human nature?
That's the core question.
Or is it the result of the choices we've made about how to structure our societies?
And the author's point is that understanding the ontology of the social helps us see how these power dynamics are embedded in our institutions and practices.
So it's not just about changing individual behaviors.
It's about transforming the systems that shape those behaviors.
But if we want to challenge these systems, we need a way to evaluate them.
Absolutely.
How do we determine which social forms are more just, more equitable?
The author suggests we can develop criteria by looking at the impact that different social forms have
on human well-being.
Are they promoting cooperation, mutual respect, the flourishing of all members?
Or are they leading to exploitation, conflict, concentration of power?
We need a social ontology that's not just about describing what is,
but also envisioning what could be.
Exactly. Ultimately, social ontology is about understanding the potential for human freedom and creating social structures that support that potential.
It's about imagining a better future and building it.
I love that.
We've been talking a lot about how social reality is constructed, but here comes everything. The promise of Object1.pdf takes this idea even further.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it brings in some really wild ideas from...
Where are they going with this?
Quantum physics.
Quantum physics. Okay, I'm intrigued.
It might seem like a leap, but stick with me.
All right, you've got my attention.
Quantum physics is always good for bending the brain a little bit.
For sure. So one of the most mind-blowing concepts in quantum physics is this idea called non-locality.
Non-locality.
It's this idea that particles can be linked across vast distances. Almost as if they're communicating instantaneously.
Yeah, it's like the universe is playing tricks on us with our understanding of reality.
It really challenges our assumptions about separateness.
Makes you question if things are really as isolated as they seem.
And what's really interesting is that this interconnectedness at the quantum level might have implications for how we understand social reality as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If particles can be linked across space, could seemingly separate social systems also be entangled in ways we don't even grasp yet?
That is a big thought.
It is.
It's like those invisible forces we were talking about.
Yeah.
But on a whole other level.
Right. It really challenges our assumptions about how things work.
And it gets even wilder, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because here comes everything the promise of Object1.pdf also touches on.
Okay. The Copenhagen interpretation.
The Copenhagen interpretation.
The quantum mechanics.
Which suggests there might be a fundamental limit to what we can ever know about reality.
So we're saying that even physical matter is more complex and elusive than we thought.
More than we can ever fully grasp.
Imagine the depths of social reality,
Right?
just waiting to be explored.
It's a vast and uncharted territory.
It feels like we're just scratching the surface.
I think we are. That's the beauty of social ontology.
Yeah.
It's a field that's constantly evolving as we grapple with these fundamental questions.
About the nature of reality, our place in it.
And it reminds us that we are active participants
Right.
in shaping that reality.
You know, that idea of shaping social reality really resonates with me.
Yeah.
It makes all this heady philosophy stuff feel a bit more,
Well, we're grounded.
grounded. Yeah.
I think so.
So where do we go from here?
That's the question.
How do we move from understanding these concepts
Yeah.
to actually applying them in the real world?
Well, I think one of the most important takeaways from this deep dive is that by understanding the principles of social ontology, we gain this new appreciation for the power of our collective beliefs and actions.
We're not just passively shaped by society.
Right. We're actively creating it every single day.
That's empowering,
It is.
but also a little daunting, to be honest.
Yeah, I can see that.
It makes me think of that quote, be the change you want to see in the world.
Oh, yeah.
It takes on a whole new meaning
It does.
in the context of social ontology.
By understanding how social reality is constructed,
Yeah.
we can start to see those possibilities for change.
Okay.
We can question the assumptions, challenge those power structures, reimagine the ways we relate to each other and the world around us.
So it's not about throwing everything out,
No.
starting from scratch.
It's about understanding the tools we have.
Right, like language, collective intentionality,
The building blocks.
and using them consciously.
Yes, to create a better future.
Yeah. Being more aware of the forces that shape our lives and making more deliberate choices
Exactly.
about the kind of social reality we want to be a part of.
I love that.
That's a powerful thought to leave us with.
It is. So how does it connect back to social reality?
Well, one of the most mind-blowing concepts in quantum physics is non-locality.
Okay.
It's the idea that particles can be linked across vast distances.
Right.
Almost as if they're communicating instantaneously.
Yeah, and it's called entanglement.
Quantum entanglement. It's like the universe is playing tricks on us
It really is.
with our understanding of reality.
It makes you question this whole idea that things are separate.
Like really isolated from each other.
Exactly.
And what's so fascinating is that
Yeah.
this interconnectedness at the quantum level could have implications for how we understand social reality as well.
Absolutely.
Like if particles can be linked across space,
Yeah.
could social systems also be entangled in ways that we don't fully grasp yet?
It's a possibility.
Whoa, that's a pretty big thought.
It is. It challenges our assumptions about how the world works.
It's like those invisible forces we were talking about,
Yeah.
but on a whole other level.
On a cosmic level, almost.
And it gets even wilder, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because here comes everything the promise of JACQ1.pdf also touches on.
Okay.
The Copenhagen interpretation
The Copenhagen
of quantum mechanics,
Right.
which suggests that there might be a fundamental limit to what we can ever know about reality.
We might never fully grasp the nature of reality.
So we're saying that even physical matter,
Yeah.
which we think is so concrete and knowable,
Right.
is actually more complex and elusive.
Than we can possibly imagine.
Now imagine the depths of social reality
Right. It's a vast and uncharted territory.
that we're just beginning to explore.
I love that.
It feels like with all this, we're just scratching the surface.
That's the beauty of social ontology. It's constantly evolving as we grapple with these big questions.
about the nature of reality
Yeah.
and our place within it.
And the best part is,
Yeah.
it reminds us that we are active participants in shaping that reality.
You know, that idea of shaping social reality really resonates with me.
Me too.
It makes all this kind of heady philosophy stuff feel a lot more grounded.
More applicable to our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's important.
So where do we go from here?
That's the million-dollar question.
How do we move from like
Yeah.
understanding these concepts
Right.
to actually applying them in the real world?
Well, one of the most important takeaways from this whole deep dive
Okay.
is that by understanding these principles of social ontology, we gain a whole new appreciation for the power of our collective beliefs and actions.
It's not just about being shaped by society.
Right.
It's about actively creating it.
Every single day.
That's empowering, but also a little bit daunting.
It's a big responsibility.
It really is.
But we're all in this together.
It makes me think of that quote,
Yeah.
be the change you want to see in the world.
Oh, I love that one.
It takes on a whole new meaning
It does.
in the context of social ontology.
Right, because now we understand
Yeah.
how those changes actually happen.
By understanding how social reality is constructed,
Exactly.
we can start to see the possibilities.
We can question those assumptions,
Yeah.
challenge those power structures,
Mm-hmm.
reimagine the way we relate to each other and the world around us.
So it's not about throwing everything out and starting over.
No, not at all.
It's more about
Yeah.
understanding the tools that we have,
Right, the building blocks of social reality.
like language, collective intentionality,
Those primitives we talked about.
and using them consciously
With intention
to create a better future,
to build the world we want to live in.
being more aware of the forces that are shaping our lives and making those deliberate choices
Absolutely.
about what kind of social reality we want to be a part of.
That's what it all comes down to.
That is a powerful thought to leave us with.
It is. And on that note,
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone for joining us on this deep dive
Into the world of social ontology.
It's been a real pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
What kind of social reality do you want to help build?
That's the question we all need to be asking ourselves.
Thanks for listening, everyone.